you probably, especially those of you in Victoria and New South Wales, you will have had access potentially to quite a few of the sort of COVID grants for, payroll subsidies and things like that. It was funny because when we started talking about this at the beginning, nobody even had heard of the schemes that we're talking about. Now it seems like some people are familiar with the wage subsidies, but they think they're only for apprentices. They don't know about the extra 20,000 Victoria, that sort of thing. So one of the things is that the government is providing still pretty amazing financial support at the moment, but most businesses don't realise that they're eligible to claim it. So I'm going to go through what the main grants are that you can claim at the moment, who's eligible, who's not eligible, of course, because obviously not everybody can get everything, but there is a 50% wage subsidy opportunity that's definitely worth talking about. I'll cover what's excluded and who's excluded. There is some other funding that's linked to that 50% wage subsidy. So if you tap into the 50%, you can also get some additional state government money. The 50% is federal. And then I will talk about some of the state-based stuff. So I will show you in a moment, but say, for example, in Victoria, if you were to hire a 46-year-old woman to come and work in your office, you were to put her on a certificate in business administration, work-based traineeship program. She can have previous qualifications. She can have an engineering degree if you want, doesn't matter. Then you could probably get, and I'm sort of making up the salary numbers, say you had her on $56,000 a year, your out-of-pocket costs for her for the first year would be about $4,000. The federal and state governments between them would cover all the rest. So there's some pretty good funding that you can claim at the moment if you know how. Right, why are we doing it? Of course, well, it's our area of expertise. A lot of this funding is linked to you being willing to train people. Having said that, it's courses that are delivered in the workplace. It's not talking about sending them off to college necessarily or anything like that. If you're doing apprentices, obviously they have some college, but you could put someone on a leadership and management diploma or something like that. And that doesn't require necessarily going away to college. It's more doing things in the workplace and recording that they've done them. So I used to have a training organisation. That's where my area of expertise comes. The rest of my team have been working in this sector for a while. So it's something that we know and we understand, and we've started realising that not everybody understands it the same way that we do. We're claiming it ourselves. So I've got a number of employees on this program. We have hired additional staff because of this, because it's enabled us to basically hire staff, have government pay for them for a year, and do projects that we wouldn't have otherwise done. So we've launched a podcast a couple of months ago that we would not have got around to doing if we didn't have people available to do that. And it just gives you a chance to test stuff out, and find out what works and what doesn't without taking enormous business risks to do it. What's in it for us? Well, at the end of the session, you might get us to help you, and we'll do a risk-free. I'll explain how that will work, but it's a no win, no fee kind of a basis. Or you might choose to do it yourself. And my objective in this is to make sure that I give you enough information that if you do want to do it yourself, you can step your way through it. It really comes down to whether you've got the time and the patience to do it, but you certainly can do it yourself if you want to. And the other one, and I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this one, is that when this first came out, the big companies jumped in and grabbed it all, and they still tend to be the ones who are claiming most of it. It's like anything, isn't it? They've got the HR departments, they've got the finance departments, they have the resources to be able to claim all of this. And so as soon as the government announced it, they piled in and claimed most of it. Good question from Kim. So do any of these apply for existing staff, or is it just new staff? Yes, there are some for existing staff. What's happened is over the 12 months that this program has been running, as more and more people have found out about it, initially, and it was open to everybody, existing and new staff, didn't matter. That's when the big companies came in and put their entire workforces on it. The federal government and the state governments now have both tightened up the requirements for existing staff. So if you want to remind me, Kim, what industry were you in, did you say? And I can tell you whether there's marketing and hospitality. Okay, so I have to have a look. There are a few courses for I'll show you in a moment some of them, but there are some IT courses for existing staff. There's a workplace health and safety course for existing staff, but they're really cracking down on that. Like the person to claim it has to be a workplace health and safety officer. All the traditional trades, of course. There are a bunch of other in sort of skills shortage areas type things. Actually, there's a bunch of hospitality courses for existing staff, like if you're willing to put people through the higher level stuff, like chefing and things like that, of course, and bakery, pastry. There's all sorts of other stuff like dog grooming. So depending on what you're doing in marketing and hospitality, there might not be, but stick around for maybe the next 10 minutes or so, because you'll be able to see whether there's anything in this that you can use. And then I'll, I don't want to waste your time, obviously, if it's not. Thanks. This is going to behave. So a little bit of background. It seems like such a long time ago now, but if anyone remembers 2020, we got to the end of 2020 and JobKeeper was coming to an end. And JobKeeper was great. It really did help a lot of businesses stay afloat, but there were some flaws in it, and some of those flaws have been pretty publicly talked about in the last few months. Employees were paid for not working, and I know we had businesses that we were dealing with in hospitality, for example. Those of you that have been in retail or hospitality, you'll know, you had people that were doing 1 or 2 shifts a week, and you had to come up with this $1,500 a fortnight for them all, and it was all in or none in, and then you had to wait for the government to reimburse you, and people didn't have to come to work to get paid. So there were some challenges in it, and I think one of the other big issues with it is that it didn't add any long-term value. So it was a really good, ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, but it didn't build any skills in our workforce. It didn't put anybody in a position where a year or two down this track they would be stronger, apart from the fact that they survived, of course. So this time the funding is for training places, but this is important. It's for training, not tradie. And a lot of people are under the misapprehension that it's just for tradies because of the name of the program. Catherine, yes, I will send out a copy of this if you like. So if you do miss any of it, I'll send you the recording. That's no problem. I appreciate everyone turning up. Actually, we've got quite a good turnout for the week before Christmas, so I thought everyone will be flat out. So I will make sure that we don't take more than sort of 30 minutes maximum. I will cover it all as efficiently as I can, because I know there's a lot going on, especially for the retail and hospitality colleagues here. Okay, so October last year, just quickly to give you the background, federal government announced a wage subsidy for 100,000 training places. So that was anything from trades to, leadership and management diplomas, business diplomas, IT courses, a whole bunch of stuff. And there's $2.8 billion worth of wage subsidy. Got announced kind of quietly. Not many people even really noticed it. And by the 28th of that same month, 3/4 of the places have been taken up by big companies. So some of the big, pretty big, well-known brand names just swooped through and put thousands of staff on it. So by the end of that same month, the government had gone, oops, there was a bit of a mistake there, because it was anybody for any course. So then they went, right, we want to tighten up the criteria for existing workers, keep it to the skills shortage stuff, but we will open it up for new workers. So anybody who's creating jobs, obviously we want to really encourage that. Let me just check their questions. Yes, Susanna, actually what I might do, if you like, is I'll just send everybody a copy of the presentation afterwards. That's probably the easiest, if you like. If anyone particularly doesn't want it, let us know, but otherwise we'll send it out to you all. Okay, so then by May this year, 130,000 places had been used of the original 100,000. Don't know how that works, but anyway. So in the federal budget, they uncapped it. But when they uncapped it, it's kind of weird that they uncapped it and said we'll make 170,000 more places, so another $2.7 billion with a B. And 170,000 doesn't quite sound uncapped to me, but it's, anyway, they did. And then they extended it to March next year. Now, that's for commencing. So it's a 12-month wage subsidy, what I'll try to explain to you in a moment. But you've got to get the person started by March next year. So even if you don't have someone who's eligible now, if there's any possibility that you would hire somebody between now and March, and if you would consider hiring somebody between now and March if they were almost free, then it's worth sticking around and hearing about the rest of this. Last month, they tightened up the criteria for existing workers again. So there were things like, for example, the Certificate for Workplace Health and Safety was one of the courses for existing workers. And some organisations that shall remain nameless, but they may have been like fast food chicken franchises, put every single one of their employees on a certificate for workplace health and safety. And now the state governments have come back and said, come on, you can't have that many safety officers. So now the course actually has to tie in with what the person is doing. So you can't have your chicken server person doing a workplace health and safety certificate for unless they're a safety officer. You can't put a plumber on a beauty therapy course, that sort of thing. It's got to be relevant and useful to them. So fair enough. So programmers, you've probably heard of it, but you've probably got some misapprehensions, which is what I want to fix today. It's called boosting apprenticeship commencements, but it is not just about apprenticeships. So apprenticeships, as you may know, those of you that have done anything on the traineeship apprenticeship side before, is a generic term in Australia covering anybody that's doing a qualification through a work-based training pathway. So it means that you could do a diploma or an advanced diploma of anything from civil construction to business to hairdressing to plumbing to dog grooming. And as long as you are doing it on the job, learning practical stuff as you go, then you can do it through what they call an apprenticeship pathway. So this subsidy gives anybody, any business, charity, council, sports club, doesn't matter what structure your organisation is. You can be a company, you can be a sole trader as long as you've got employees. You get reimbursed up to 50% of wages for anybody that you enrol in an approved qualification, and there is an approved list, which I'll explain to you. Up to 28,000, so it's capped at 7,000 a quarter. So that basically means if you're paying someone 56,000 or more, you'll get 7,000 a quarter. If you're paying them less than that, you'll get half of what you pay them, and that's half of the gross pay. So that's half, including tax, etc. You just throw your pay slips in, and they divide it by 2 and give you the money. It's pretty much all your new staff. And I'll show you the definition of new in a moment, because basically if you've had anybody start since Christmas last year, they may be eligible, but I'll show you that in a second. And a few existing ones if they're doing jobs where there are skills shortage areas. The key thing is that they've got to do a qualification, and this is what's interesting, you can claim it in combination with some state wage subsidies. So I will show you a slide in a moment, but like I said, in Victoria, if you hire someone under 25 or a woman over 45 or a single parent or someone from a country where English is a second language has arrived in the last 4 years, or a whole lot of other things on criteria, potential, any one of those options, you can get up to $20,000 from the state government, you can get $28,000 from the federal government, you can get another $4,000 from the state government for the course, and you can get a subsidised course as well. So some people we are working with are getting 90% of their wages reimbursed. Is that making sense so far? If you just want to chop in the chat and say, yeah, logical, no, don't know what you're talking about, whatever. That's just a slide just to show you it's a real thing. That's a bit of so the program is called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements. It says down here, to take on new apprentices and trainees, and it's trainee that's the key word in most of these cases. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Awesome, thank you. Sometimes I start talking about this stuff and I'm like, I hope people know what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's a bit of a win-win, as of course, because I think one of the lessons that hopefully our government has learned from other countries is that one of the things that we need to be able to do to get through these very unusual times, shall we say, I won't say unprecedented, is that we need to keep the economy moving. And so one of the best ways to keep the economy moving, of course, is to boost business, and especially small business. That keeps employment going, that keeps money circulating, it keeps businesses sustainable, adaptable, and all that sort of thing. So benefits the government to the economy, benefits us as employers, obviously, because it helps our cash flow. And I know for me, it's been incredibly reassuring through all of this to have my people on a 50% wage subsidy, so that I just have that pressure off to know if we do have ups and down months where we're still okay, we've still got that financial security. And I think the same for the employees. They feel confident too that they've got that financial security and that job security for that period of time. And of course, they come out with a qualification. So, they're better off in the long run as well. And from the employer's point of view, the other thing is that, I don't know if anyone else has been hiring at the moment. Has anyone been trying to hire? But I have, and it's kind of crazy out there. There's a few, let me just see what the little... Yes, okay, so I don't know what you guys are finding hiring, but there's a bit of a skills shortage. I think that might be the understatement of the year, would you say? And so the good thing about this is that potentially, say you wanted someone with, say, digital marketing skills, which is one of the areas where it's really hard to find anyone at the moment, because we do some digital marketing for people and it's quite hard to find people. We're having to train our own. But this gives you a chance to hire someone with the right attitude, the right kind of character, if you like, maybe part of the experience that you need, and then you can upskill them for free. So it helps you grow your own, which is where we kind of used to be, perhaps back in the olden days when I first started working. Employers tended to develop their own staff, but I think we've been quite fortunate in recent years where we can just go and, buy somebody with the skills that we want. And I think we've gone back. Actually, I saw a really interesting number the other day. It said we have 500,000 fewer workers in our workforce than we did at the start of the pandemic, which is a combination of a number of things. But one of the major contributors, of course, is the lack of international students and the lack of your backpackers and things like that. That's a huge chunk of employees taken out of the market. Okay, so who's eligible? So like I said, any employer except for state and federal governments. So if you're funded by a state or federal government, that's fine. But if you're actually the government department, then your organisation is not eligible. But councils are. It's just state and federal governments that aren't. It's Australia-wide. We've been working with clients in every single state and territory now. Any industry, any business size, but you've got to have an employee. So if you're a sole operator and you're the only person, then you can't train somebody because you've got nobody to train, so you can't have someone. But if you hired someone, you could. Full-time or part-time staff, and I will explain that in a moment, because I think there's a really interesting opportunity in this that a lot of people are missing in terms of casual and part-time staff. So I will talk about that in a second. Australian citizens, New Zealand citizens. Now that's a bit different from JobKeeper, if anyone was on JobKeeper. The criteria for New Zealand citizens is have to have been here for 6 months or more. You might be able to tell by the fact that I've only got one vowel that I'm not originally from here. And I think pretty much all us Kiwis that are here have been here for more than 6 months anyway, because we can't get home. So if you've got Kiwis working for you, they're still eligible. And anyone who's on a visa that's got a P next to it. So student visas aren't eligible, but some of the skilled worker ones are, some of the partner ones are. Just basically, if their class of visa is one that allows them to stay permanently, then they are eligible as well. So it's quite a bit broader than JobKeeper was in terms of who can get it. And they can have a PhD, they can have a degree, they can have a trade, it doesn't matter, as long as you're upskilling them in something that's relevant to your job. So we've had quite a few people who, for example, have got engineers working for them and they've put them on a project management diploma or something like that. There's quite an opportunity for you if you've got graduate staff to give them some specific practical training that will support what they've done in their degree. Okay, just a couple of quick calculations like I keep talking about. If you had 5 people on it, you're getting $140,000 for those 5 people. Some states and some people are going to potentially get your course for absolutely free. What I've done this calculation on is on the worst case scenario. If you actually had to pay full fees for the courses with no subsidies, then you're still going to end up with over $100,000 if you put 5 people through this. Now, the training, we can refer you to training providers. That's part of the service that we offer. And we have been picking out ones who've, A, got the approval, but also B, flexible enough in their fees, because you don't want to obviously end up in a situation where you're paying out for a course and then your person doesn't get approved, so you need to make sure that all your approval and your money stuff is sorted before you end up funding the course. But worst case, if you have to spend, $20-something thousand out of your 140,000 for your 5 people for the actual training, you're still going to come out well ahead. And there are payroll tax rebates if anyone's big enough to be paying payroll tax. And there are other state incentives. So if your person doesn't have any other qualifications, most states will give you another $4,000 for the fact that you're upskilling them. Like I said, in Victoria, you get up to $20,000 if you're hiring an extra person. In Queensland, we had some people in Queensland, didn't we? Let me just check. So you Queenslanders, what are you in? If you're in Brisbane City, Sunshine Coast Council or Gold Coast Council, you're not eligible. But if we have any Queenslanders who are in other parts of Queensland, let me know, because I'll talk about what you guys can get as well. Basically, there's another $20,000 for the Queenslanders anyway. So here's a little calculation that I mentioned before. You hire one 45-year-old female, this because it's more money. If they're over 45s, you get more money for hiring women than men. It's because we're disadvantaged or unemployable or something. Okay, Paola, you would be, if you're in Far North Queensland, there is a pot of money for you for both for wage subsidy stuff, but also for hiring young people, old people, whatever. So we should talk. Hire someone 45 to do an office job, pay a 56,000. You might have paid a bit more than that in Victoria actually, but that's just, I'm in Brisbane. Get 28,000 from the federal government, you get 20,000 from the state government, you get another 4,000 from the state government. So the annual cost of that person will be $4,000 plus, you know, super and whatever other entitlements and things. Tasmania, Jenny, you get the 28 for the wage subsidy, and then you get up to another 4. I would have to check with one of my colleagues, but I think it's up to another 4 from the state. So it's not a big incentive for Tasmania, but there are bits and pieces that if you're going to claim one, you might as well claim the whole lot in one bundle. So yeah, potentially, so if you're in Victoria, you want to hire 5 new staff, it might be only costing you, say, 20,000 for the first year of those 5 new staff, which means there's an awful lot you could do with them. Western Australia law is actually the same as Tasmania. You only have got the federal government 28,000 and then another 4,000 from the WA government if your person doesn't have a qualification in that area at that level already. When I say only, I mean 32,000 is not to be sneezed at for every person. It just doesn't cover 100% of their wages, but you know, still quite nice. It's funny, isn't it? We go, oh, only half. You only get paid half the wages. Okay, a couple of interesting statistics, just because I think statistics are interesting because I'm a bit of a geek. 60% so far of the people that have made claims are not in traditional trades. So it really has spread way beyond just the plumbers. 40% now are in small business. So since they changed those rules, that existing workers, it has been much more evenly distributed, which is awesome. And 20% have been employees over 35 years old, which is also encouraging. Something that is, I mentioned before about the 500,000 employees that have disappeared from the workforce in the last 2 years. Seek, when I looked last month, there were nearly 250,000 jobs being advertised on Seek. Seek is saying that they expect it to be record numbers in January. Like that was a record already. They expect another record in January, right through till March. They're expecting continuing records. We have talked to quite a few people who have looked at the scheme and said, oh yeah, that's cool. I might try and hire in January or February. I think there are going to be so many people hiring in January or February that we are actually about to run an ad this week, which seems crazy to run it the week before Christmas, but we'll run the ad, get the person to start in the new year. But it just means that hopefully we might get ahead of the competition for those employees. Yeah, it was a $65,000 job number increase over 1 month on Seek. And interestingly, over 100,000 of those are in hospitality. But that's still an awful lot in non-hospitality as well, as we're all finding. What I wanted to do was show you some examples of what they call a new worker and how you might decide to use that opportunity. So basically, anybody, or it's actually not late August now, it would be September, sorry, I need to update that slide. Anybody that you have hired, today is what date? The 15th, 16th? Okay, so anybody that you've hired since the 18th of September this year is counted as a new worker. So even if you've already got them, we can backtrack and put them on this program. So first thing to do today is to look and see, have you hired anybody since the 18th of September? If you hired them like on the 18th of September or within a week or two of that, message us straight away after this, and my colleague Rachel will lodge like a placeholder kind of a claim for you, because you have to lodge the claim within 90 days of them starting. In Queensland, actually, you have to lodge the state claim within 84 days of them starting. So that would bring you to about the 24th of September or something. So basically, if you've hired anybody in the second half of September, let us know whether you get us to do this for you, whether you do it yourself. We'll just lodge the placeholder claim for you, so at least you don't miss out. And then that gives you time to think about it, talk to them, decide what you want to do, but at least it gets the ball rolling. We've been doing these webinars every couple of weeks now for a few months, and we keep on running into people who, one guy in North Queensland missed out on 48,000 a few weeks ago because it was literally 2 days. It was actually, we ran the webinar and it was 12 days after the webinar that he sent us the information, and his date had expired 3 days before that. So it was a bit sad. So anybody that you've hired part-time, again, sorry, my slide is a bit out of date, since the 16th of December last year. So a new worker is counted as anyone who's been part-time for less than 12 months or full-time for less than 3 months. So I would presume that there will be quite a few of you here today who have hired a part-timer in the last 12 months or even potentially a full-timer in the last 3. So those ones are definitely worth looking at. Let me just check. Okay, that's a really good question from Jenny. Jenny said, what if you hired an employee early 2020 on a casual basis and then they were made part-time from July 2021? What state are you in again, Jenny? Let me just check. You did say, didn't you? Tasmania. Yes, perfect. You won't get a free course. You will have to pay for the course for them out of your wage subsidy money, but they will be eligible for the 50% wage subsidy because you upgraded them from part-time, from casual to part-time within the last 12 months, which I think is actually one of the ones that I've got on the slide. So yeah, you should claim it. Sort of makes sort of no-brainer really. Anyone that you're going to hire before the end of March next year, obviously is going to be eligible, but bear in mind that the waiting list to get an appointment with the government agencies to actually sign your people up is about a 4-week waiting list at the moment. And some of them are saying it's if we haven't got them signed up and done by the 31st of March, you're not getting it. Some of them are saying we're still waiting to see what the government says. They might allow you to have booked in and not signed up. But I think to err on the side of caution, you're probably going to have to get people signed up by the end of February just to be safe. Because there's quite, I mean, you can imagine there's 217,000 people have been put on this program so far. That's an awful lot of paperwork for agencies to do. Okay, so full-time less than 90 days, part-time less than 12 months. But this is the one that Jenny that you mentioned. So casuals that you're upgrading to part-time or full-time, no matter how long they've been there, are eligible for the wage subsidy. So they could have been casual with you for 20 years and then you make them part-time, still eligible. So that's quite an opportunity. Same with part-timers. If you've had a long-term part-timer and you've upgraded them to full-time in the last 3 months, then again, still eligible. So all those ones are what they call new workers. You might not think of them as a new worker, but as far as the official definition, they come in as new workers. Yes, in New South Wales, that is the same. Something like I said, you pay for that out of your wage subsidy. You know, you to get the free course, but they are
Hi everyone, it sounds like Melanie's got stuck. Not sure if I'm the only one, but hopefully she'll be back in a second. This is where I do a song and dance, if you can hear me. So just checking, can you just, oh, you can hear me, Rach. Thank you so much, Jenny. It's good to know. I feel like I'm talking to myself. While Melanie's trying to get back in, oh, she's back. Are you back? It looks like she might be back in a second. You're quiet. Let me put you on. Yeah, you're muted, Melanie. That's
okay.
Better.
Am I back now?
You are.
That is the first
I didn't have to dance after all.
That's the first time of all the times we've done this that this has actually happened. So I'm very glad, Rachel, that we have had you as a backup plan for the last 10 times. Sorry, everybody. Can you all hear me again? Yes, cool. Thank you. Thank you. So you didn't have to sing, Rachel, hopefully. So I don't know where we got to before I disappeared without realizing I disappeared. I think I was just up to the bit where I was saying to you guys that all the states, tell me if this is or not all again. Actually, let me just check the chat. Paola was looking forward to the singing and dancing. You can come back, Rachel, if you want. So for every state, you can take your casuals or part-timers and upgrade them to part or full-time and get a wage subsidy. The only variable is that different states will charge you different prices for the courses if you do that. So in New South Wales, you get free courses for all of your new workers unless they've been there more than 12 months and they're an upgrade, and then you have to pay something. So there's just a few details on that, but I'm just making it confusing probably, so I'll try not to do that. Let me give you a few examples of the sort of courses that you might want to put your new workers on. So new employees. So most states have got funding for at least some of these courses now, just to make life interesting. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but our states all have slightly different rules from each other. A sarcasm emoji. For the course to be approved and the wage subsidy to be approved, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, it's all solvable, but it's a little complicated, is that first of all, the course has to be approved by the federal government for this wage subsidy. Then it has to be approved by the state government as a traineeship. Then it has to be approved by the state government for funding in some cases. And then the training provider that you choose has to be approved by the state government as a traineeship training provider. So you're basically looking at 4 lists and matching them up, which is what Rachel does for our clients every day. She loves it. I can say that because she's muted. And she keeps delegating it to our other colleague, Anthony, who actually doesn't mind doing it. So you match those 4 lists together, and then you find the course that matches the person's job that is available in that location. So here's some examples that are available in most of the states. So you can do Certificate 2 in hospitality in most places and get a wage subsidy for that. This is for new employees, remember. You can do Cert 3s in business or retail, or all the various trades and things. There's various landscaping ones, and fire safety, and greenkeeping, and animal care, and hairdressing, and all those sort of things, of course. There's a whole bunch of Certificate 4s, which are more at your kind of senior staff level, like project management, health and safety, environmental management, entrepreneur. The Cert for an entrepreneurship is actually pretty good. Covers a lot of the stuff that most small businesses are needing at the moment. So a lot of the digital skills. There's a leadership and management course, which is basically the supervisor's course. And then the diplomas. Now, Western Australia, for you Western Australian people, the only diploma really that's on the list out of these ones, there are others, is the leadership and management one, but you've got a lot more Certificate 4 options, and you've got some advanced diploma options as well. Jenny, do you know of any digital marketing? Yes. What we have been putting people on with the digital marketing one is there's a Certificate 4 in business, which it used to be a business admin style course, and then the federal government brought out a new curriculum for that this year, and there are now multiple streams. It's kind of like when you're doing a degree and you major in a different subject. You can do a Certificate 4 in business now, kind of majoring in sales or in digital marketing or in office admin or in operations. I think there's a finance one, there's a whole bunch. So one of the training providers that we've been sending people to has taken the Cert 4 in business and brought in all the digital marketing subjects, the web subjects, the advertising and marketing planning kind of subjects, and basically made quite a good digital marketing qualification out of that one. And that is available, I think, in every state. We'd have to check, but most, if not all the states can do that one. But there's a whole lot more. That's just like a little sample. Now, here are some ideas. Before I do that, let me just check the chat. Does it need to be a Certificate 4, not just a subject? Thinking of NDIS staff training requirements. Yeah, that's a funny one, Catherine, because the idea is that, and we find this with NDIS, like individual support kind of stuff, aged care is the same, childcare is the same, and real estate agents are another one where you might need to do a short course that people have to have for compliance kind of reasons. And the thing with this program is that as soon as the course is finished, the wage subsidy stops. So there's no point, should I say that, to put them on a really short course, because you only get a wage subsidy for a really short time. So for example, what some real estate agents have been doing is they might have an office person who they want to get a real estate license, but she needs to get the real estate license really quickly, and that's a short course. So they put her on a Certificate 3 in business for her office duties. That goes for the whole year. And they use then some of the leftover money from the wage subsidy to pay for her short course for her real estate license. And we've seen the same thing with some of the individual support one. Put people on, say, Cert 3 of individual support and get the funding for that, and then use some of the surplus money to pay for the short things. The other thing I've seen a few people doing is, you might have some new workers coming in that you put on your Cert 3 and individual support, and then you use some of the surplus money to train your managers and some of the compliance, professional development stuff. So you can, of course, use that wage subsidy money for anything you want. You can use it to train other staff. You can use it to go on a cruise if you are brave enough to do that at the moment. So generally, people are being quite creative in the way that they're using the surplus. Hope that made sense. So here are some of the stuff that I've seen people do and that we've come up with that are ways that you could actually use this in your business. First one is that if you've got part-timers, like I said, doesn't matter how long they've been with you. And obviously all these things are on the assumption that your employee wants to do this. You can't make them. But if you've got part-timers, you could offer to make them full-time on a 12-month contract. And the wage cost to you stays the same because you're getting half of it subsidised, or it's pretty much the same if you double their hours, say. You're not obliged to put them on a permanent full-time contract. It just has to be the 12 months to cover the duration of their traineeship program. That means that you get twice the amount of hours for the same cost, and your employee gets twice the amount of hours and twice the amount of money for a year as well. And, maybe by the end of that year, you'll have enough business or whatever, or things will be settled down enough that you can keep them on permanently. So it is an opportunity to take some of your good part-timers and give them extra hours. If you've got casuals, you could make them part-time, keep them on the same kind of hours. So, and halve your wage bill basically because it's becoming subsidised. So say you've got Certificate 2 in hospitality casuals, well, not qualified, but casuals, put them on a Cert 2 in hospitality, which is a 6-month course, make them part-time for 6 months, get the 50% wage subsidy for that period of time, gets you through this kind of unsettled time. And something to think about. I'm not an industrial relations person, so please get expert advice and don't listen to me. But you do see, don't you, that people, if you've got casuals, there's this whole permanent casuals thing that people talk about, which is not even really a thing. But if you're putting people on the same roster, regularly, then they could come back to you one day potentially and say, well, I was a part-timer all that time, so now you owe me holiday pay and everything else. So they may not be real casuals anyway, even if you are paying them as casuals. So this might be an opportunity to clean that up for yourself and get a wage subsidy while you're doing it. The other thing to think about with the part-timer is that in most states, except for Victoria, the definition of part-time for this program is a minimum of 15 hours a week or 60 hours a month averaged over the weeks. In Victoria, it's 13 hours a week. It's slightly less, but if you say 15, that's safe. So if you've got casuals that are doing 60 hours over a 4-week period for you, you could still make them part-timers, keep them on that moving roster of 60 hours because you don't have to do the same number of hours every week for this. So it really is an opportunity, especially for a retail and hospitality kind of organisations to save some money on your wage bill and hopefully get your people to stick around for 6 months because they're getting a course out of it as well. This is another one, the one that we've done that I mentioned before. If you're hiring one person, hire a second person on a 12-month contract. Cost is going to be the same potentially as if you hired one person, assuming that you're paying them in that sort of 60 grand range, not the 200 grand wage, and get some extra projects done. There's things I think anybody who's got a bit of an entrepreneurial brain cell kind of goes, oh, I've got this idea and I've got this idea. I'd like to try that. And you try all the stuff, you spend all this money and some of it works and some of it doesn't. Or this is a chance to try all that and develop some skills and some people and get it paid for while you're trying it out. And the other one, especially for you Southerners, is that there is scope here. If people have worked for you before and you stood them down and now they've come back, if they've been gone for 6 months, doesn't matter what their employment status was before, they're counted as new workers again. It's also relevant. So if you hired somebody, say, New South Wales, just before you went into lockdown, you hired somebody, then you had to send them down and they came back. So they've been full-time with you maybe for more than 90 days or part-time for more than 12 months, but there was a hole in the middle of it because you weren't working. Most of the ASINs, they're called, the government-funded agencies who sign people up, they're allowed to apply discretion. So most of them are looking at those and going, yeah, if we count up the total number of days, they've been there less than 90 days, so we'll still let you put them through as a new worker. So for anyone who's got that kind of messy stuff, that we can put in an application to kind of get discretion used and potentially count them as new workers as well. Okay, let me just explain the existing worker thing, because all that stuff we just talked about was for new workers. So existing workers, the money is the same, the wage subsidy is the same, all that sort of thing. But the rules are, and I've just pasted them in here, an existing worker is only eligible to get the payment where the existing worker commences in a trades-based Australian apprenticeship. Now, there's a list called Appendix E of what they call trades-based Australian apprenticeships. And that's the stuff I was talking about before. It's obviously, it's all the traditional trades, but it's also a lot of the skills shortage things. There's a certificate for in IT on there. There's the workplace health and safety one, as we mentioned. There are, dog grooming, greenkeeping, landscaping. What else is on there? Cybersecurity is another one. So there are quite a few things that are counted by government definition as trades, which are not what we would think of as a traditional trade. They don't involve climbing up on a roof or going down a drain pipe or anything. And then, casuals who become part-time or part-timers who become full-time are allowed as well. So there's a 13-page list. I think I've got it. I didn't stick a picture of it there, but basically there's a list of what those trades-based Australian apprenticeships are and all sorts of weird and wonderful courses. We can send it to you. Probably the easiest way, though, is if you just want to send us a list of who you've got, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. And then we can tell you if there's anything that they'd be able to do or not. Because what we find is people go through it themselves and they go, yes, my person can do this. And it's like, no, they can't, because there's this other one little rule that I didn't get a chance to tell you about in half an hour. But I can send you one anyway. But just bear in mind that I don't want to lead you astray by sending you half the story. That's just a bit of the blurb. So basically, you've got to be all Certificate 3 or Certificate 4 level courses on that list, and it's got to be in an occupation, which is a skills shortage area. There's a few examples of the courses though. So there's all the trade stuff, there's cybersecurity, like I said, there's like a Certificate 4 in home sustainability, which is, if you've got architects or solar technicians or any of those kind of things, then they're potentially eligible. There is safety. If you've got anyone's doing civil construction, as in constructing or destructing big things, not houses, then there's that course is available for existing workers. So there are quite a few for existing workers. There's just little details in the application of it, I guess. This is an example that comes back once you're approved. That was a New South Wales one. That was for a Certificate 4 in civil construction for an existing worker, just to show that it's actually a thing. Once that piece of paper arrives at the training provider, then that's when you know you're approved for the wage subsidy. Okay, let me tell you step by step what you actually have to do. And then you can decide if you want to do it or if you want us to do it. So I will make sure we send you all these slides, because this is what you'll use as your checklist if you decide to do it yourself. So first thing is have a look at the approved courses, and that's looking at those 4 different lists: the state government list, the federal government list, the funded list, and the approved provider list, and also the existing worker list versus the new worker list. Think about any new staff that you want to take on and any skills that you would want them to have that they maybe don't already have. Think about any existing staff that will fit into those criteria, the narrower criteria for courses. Check the qualifications and staff that you've got that meet the criteria. Make sure you've got someone to supervise them. So obviously if you're hiring a plumbing apprentice and you don't have any plumbers working for you, you can't do that. Same kind of principle applies here. If you want to put someone on a Certificate 3 in business, you need to make sure that there's someone in the business who knows about business. Now, usually if you're a small business, that'll be the owner, but there needs to be a supervisor who can help train people on the job. Now, I would assume you're not going to hire anybody if you can't train them on the job, but just bear in mind that that's something that's quite important. Check for any other state-based incentives or employee benefits like the 20,000 in Victoria. Choose a training provider. Try and find one with funding where you can. I mean, you've got options, as you know, anyone who's done this, there's a whole range of training providers, from the really dodgy, cheap tick and flick ones up to the ones who'll actually teach them something useful, some funded, some not. So really it's choose the one that suits you the best. Choose what they call an ASIN, which is a service that signs them up. Organise a sign up between your employee, your ASIN and your training provider, lodge your wage claim, and then put in your application for the other incentives as well. Sounds easy, exactly that. So we can help with most of that if you want to, and I will tell you before we go how we can do that just very quickly. But the easy part, once that's all done, is to claim the wage subsidy. So once you're registered, then you just get sent, I get a text and an email, I think most people do, which says, hey, upload your pay slips for your person. So you complete a declaration that says, yes, this person still works here. Yes, they're still doing this job. The job's relevant to their course. And here are their pay slips. You upload them and you're supposed to get your money in the bank account within the next 14 days. Having said that, please don't rely on this for urgent cash flow, because the payments that we were supposed to get in the 3rd week of October only hit my bank account in the last week of November. So they're so behind at the moment because there are so many people. So the money does turn up, but just bear in mind that it could be a little bit longer than you think. Okay, let me just read Adam's question. I'm in hospitality. How is it manageable for the employee if she is doing a Cert 2 hospitality course, I assume over 6 months, and at the same time he is simultaneously working for your company? Good question. The idea of these courses is that they are on the job type things. So for something like, say, Cert 2 in hospitality, I'm trying to think of a skill that you might need to learn. It might be, what would you need to learn? Like customer service at the table, offering people dessert or upselling at the table or something like that, say. So one of the subjects will be about providing customer service to incoming customers. And the way that they will do that course is they will keep a journal. They'll do some activities, but mainly they'll be keeping a journal of, I've provided this service, I did this, I did this, and then you'll sign off to say, yes, they'll practice. So they will do some, assessments as well, some questions. They'll get, told, how would you deal with this situation? What would you do? So they'll get some training and some assessment that's theoretical, but then most of their stuff will be applying it in the workplace. So the idea is that most of it will be the stuff that you'll be teaching them anyway, but it's in a more structured way. So you make sure, how you hire someone and then 6 months later you go, oh, I never told them what to do if this happened. So I'm not trying to downplay it. There is genuine, they are actually doing a course, like absolutely it's important, but it's a what they call a workplace-based training pathway rather than a college-based training pathway. Does that make sense? Let me know if it does. So they will be learning, but it's part of their job. It's not separate from their job. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me just tell you what happens next. So a couple of other questions that we get, and we're about to wrap up. So if you've got any other questions, just drop them in and then I'll just explain to you what to do next. Question that we get quite a bit is, some very nice chap said, oh, problem is my concrete is all a bit thick. And it's like, I'm sure they're not, but anyway, what if they don't pass, was what he was asking. Is I'm like, you don't have to pay the wage subsidy back as long as they are genuinely engaging with their training and completing their activities and things, then, or attempting to complete their activities, you still get paid. If they leave halfway through, the payment stops, obviously, but you don't have to pay back what you've already claimed. There's no point in putting someone on if they're only going to stay a few weeks, because you'll end up paying for a course, but you can put them on and then wait to start the course for, a month or more. So you can just make sure they're the right person before you spend any money on the course. The other one people say is, am I going to spend a lot of time training them? Well, the stuff that you'd be doing anyway, and then they supervise them and they need to sign off to say, yes, I saw Mary, serve 6 tables and she did it well. And she asked them if they wanted to address your criteria might be. So it's just supervising as you normally would be and signing off that they've done the activities. Okay, so if you get us to help, here's the thing. This bureaucracy, I would presume, is not your core business. So what we're finding with most of the companies that we're talking to is that you're either really busy because business is booming, or you're really busy because your business is in trouble, but there's kind of not much in between at the moment for people, it seems. So you are very welcome to do this yourself, and I hope that what I've given you today is enough for you to be able to do it yourself. A couple of things to think about though, however, I keep running into people, and we keep getting calls from people whose applications got rejected because they got coded wrong, or because when the application went in through the apprenticeship centre, they got bad advice. Like, you imagine these apprenticeship centres have had to process 217,000 applications so far. I was talking to one a few weeks ago and they were well behind on it. And that's okay. We've got 100 new staff starting on Monday. And I don't know about you, but if I had 100 new staff starting on Monday, I wouldn't be very confident that they would know what they were doing straight away. So we're seeing a lot of bad advice being given unintentionally by people who are trying really hard, and a lot of forms being filled out incorrectly and applications getting rejected. So that is one thing to think about. So what I would suggest that you do is get us to do all the setup like your accountant would have done for you for JobKeeper if you're eligible. And then once a quarter, you just do the uploading the pay slips bits. So you just carry on with your core business. We'll do all the background work. We'll figure out what courses you need. We'll match them to your jobs, your people. We'll contact the training providers. We'll contact the government, set up the appointments. When it's approved, then you forward 10% of what you get approved for to us. So the way that we get paid is we claim 10% of what you get. If cash flow is an issue for you, then don't pay us until you actually get the actual cash, because I don't want to put anyone in a position where you are out of pocket for this. That's not why we're doing this. So, and then you just keep doing what you do, which presumably is not manage this. So yeah, talk to us if you want to do it and you want to hold off on, on payment until you get money. That's not a problem. You don't pay us anything at all unless you get approved. We do the work anyway. What we would do is, Rachel, can you drop the quiz? And you did. Oh, she's psychic. Thank you. So there's a little quiz that Rachel has just dropped into the chat, which is a job form quiz. And it's just a few questions like, have you got any new staff? Have you got this? Who are they? What do they do? You should better do it in 5 minutes. And that is just basically saying, please go and investigate this for us. And if you get us some money, we'll pay you something. And we'll come back to you with one of two options. We'll either come back to you and say, look, there's no point in us doing this for you. You've just got one person, you just need to chuck them on that course, don't need us. Or we'll come back to you and say, yes, we can help you get this much funding and these courses, and we'll let you know either way. But that's probably the quickest and easiest starting point. If you want to write anything, there's a section for you to write notes. We won't go ahead and apply for anything on your behalf, of course, without your approval. So this job form is just for us to do the preliminary assessment. We won't lodge an application until you actually give us the go ahead. Just let me check the questions. Can you apply for the federal boost scheme after you've applied for the Vic Jobs 20k wage subsidy? Depends on your timing, Adam. Probably, as long as if it's for part-timers, as long as it's less than 12 months since they started. And if it's for full-timers, as long as it's less than 90 days since they started. So yes, we've had some clients who they've applied for one already on their own, and then we've done the other one for them. Or we can do both or whatever. So you should be able to, depending on the timing. Just on that sort of double dipping question, it's a funny one. Like, when you can't claim two federal schemes for the same employee. So if you hire someone who's been long-term unemployed and you get $10,000 from the Job Active provider, say, then you can't claim this as well. But you're allowed to claim one federal one and one state one. So for the Victorian jobs one, yes, you can claim the state one as well. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, if you want to grab that job form link and fill in some details, we're happy to have a look at it for you. We will send you out a copy of this, and we'll send you out that job form link as well in case you missed it now, so that you can have a chat. But otherwise, can somebody, is Elisa listening? I don't know if she is, I'll get her to drop her mobile in because we're all working from home today. Otherwise, she might not be on. Rachel, do you know what Elisa's mobile is off the top of your head? Otherwise, just shoot us an email, might be easier to, I'll pop it up here, just to elisaw@sagestrategy.com.au, see where that's down the bottom. So that's the first step. Just give us the info, your approval for us to investigate it. We will go through, work it out. If it's really simple, we'll tell you to do it yourself if you want to. If it's really complex and we know that you're going to be better off for us to do it, then we will organise it for you. We are working from home today though, so Elisa's number, thank you, is in the chat now. It's 0451 733 418 if you want to give her a call. If you would rather email her, it's on that slide that I've just popped up at the bottom of the slide. And so you've got three options: fill out the form, give her a call, give her an email, one or the other. Thank you, Paula. Oh, that's interesting. So you're RTO training tourism hospital and captive animals and claiming it for your parks, your parent company. You could probably claim it for some of your own employees as well, actually. And are you a traineeship RTO? Let us know if you are, because I might be able to send you some people. Great. I'm glad that was helpful. I hope it was helpful, I should say. Let us know if we can do anything for you. And otherwise, have a wonderful Christmas. I can't believe I'm saying that already. Oh, that's good. I'm glad it was useful to you. Thanks, guys. And it's perfect timing because my cat has just joined me. So one more question. No, sorry. And there's a cat. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Have a good day.